Hi, my name is Mackenzie Lavelle, and today's professional development is going to focus on how teachers can effectively use reading assessment data to guide instruction and improve student literacy outcomes. At Comanche Elementary, we have several reading assessment tools, including Start Early Literacy, Amira Learning, and the HMH Into Reading Program assessments. These systems provide a large amount of valuable student data across different skill areas such as phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. However, our needs assessment showed that while teachers are actively using these tools, there's a need for additional support in interpreting what the data is actually telling us and how to consistently apply it in instruction. The goal of today's session is to slow that process down and to create a clear, practical system for turning data into instruction that directly supports student reading growth. The purpose of today's training is fourfold. First, we will review the current reading assessment tools used at Comanche Elementary and clarify what each one is measuring and how that data connects to instruction. Second, we will examine specific challenges that were identified in our school needs assessment, especially related to interpreting data and deciding what instructional steps should come next. Third, we will introduce a simple and consistent process that can be used across grade levels to turn data into instruction. And finally, we will apply this process to real classroom examples so that our teachers can immediately see how it connects to their daily teaching practices. Based on our needs assessment survey, one of the clearest areas of need is data interpretation and instructional decision making. Teachers shared that they regularly used reading assessment data, but sometimes felt unsure about how to fully interpret what that data means in terms of instruction. In other words, the data is there, but the next step in what to do with the data isn't always clear. Another challenge is the amount of data that is being generated across platforms. Start Early Literacy, Amira Learning, and HMH Into Reading all provide important and valuable information, but each system looks at reading from a slightly different angle. This can sometimes make it difficult to know which data point should drive our instruction first. Because of this, our teachers expressed a need for a more consistent and simplified approach that helps connect data directly to instructional planning and small group instruction. Research on effective instruction consistently shows that student achievement increases when teachers are confident and consistent. Sorry, I forgot to change my slide. Research on effective instruction consistently shows that student achievement increases when teachers are confident and consistent in using data to guide instruction. It also shows that when teachers collaborate around student data and share instructional decision-making, student outcomes in reading improve. Overall, the research supports a simple idea. Data is only powerful when it is actively being used to change instruction in real time, not just reviewed after assessments are completed. In practice, the challenge is not a lack of data, but an overwhelming amount of it without a clear system for using it. Teachers often have to access multiple reports and dashboards, but may not always have a shared process for deciding what to do next instructionally. This can lead to variation in how data is used from classroom to classroom, which may result in inconsistent instructional practices and student experiences. The goal is not to add more data, but to simplify how we respond to the data that we are already receiving. The first step in the instructional data cycle is going to be collecting and reviewing data. At our school, we gather data from Start Early Literacy, Amira Learning, HMH Into Reading, and classroom-based observations, such as running records or comprehension checks. At this stage, the goal is to look for patterns across multiple sources rather than focusing on one single score. We are trying to understand the whole picture of the student as a reader. The second step is to group students based on instructional need. Instead of only grouping students by grade level or by reading level, we should be grouping students based on specific skill areas, such as phonics, fluency, vocabulary, or comprehension. These groups should remain flexible and should change as the students grow and develop new needs throughout the year. The third step is connecting instruction directly to the data. Once our students are grouped, instruction should be intentionally matched to their specific needs. For example, students who struggle with phonics would benefit from explicit instruction in sound pattern and decoding strategies. Students who struggle with fluency would benefit from repeated reading, modeling, and guided oral practice. The key idea here is alignment, making sure that our instruction directly aligns with and responds to the information that the data is giving us. For example, a student may show low fluency scores in Amira, and this pattern may also appear in the teacher's classroom reading observations. After reviewing this information, the teacher can create a small group focused specifically on fluency development. Instruction in this group may include repeated reading, it may include teacher modeling of fluent reading, and it could include guided oral practice. Over time, the teacher continues to monitor these students' progress using ongoing assessment data and adjust instruction as needed based on student growth. The great thing about this is things like Amira have those progress monitoring built into it already. So if you're using your Amira learning data to look at your students' fluency scores, you can go ahead and assign that progress monitoring, and it'll lay out the data right for you every single month so you can see exactly how your students are growing. The final step is to reassess and adjust instruction. Data should never be viewed as a static thing. Instead, it should be used to continuously guide instruction and to monitor our students' growth. As students progress, they may move between groups or receive different instructional support. If they're not progressing, instruction needs to be adjusted or intensified. This cycle ensures that instruction remains responsive and aligned with student need throughout the year. To summarize today's training, there are 4 key takeaways. First, data should always guide instruction. It should not just be collected because, we have to do beginning, middle, end of the year assessments. We have to have the data. No, we need to be using the data regularly to guide our learning in the classroom and ensure that the students are receiving the instruction that is needed. Second, small groups should be flexible and based on our students' need rather than a fixed placement. As our students learn and grow, their needs are going to change. And so those groups need to be flexible to allow for that change. Third, instruction must be intentional and directly aligned with specific skill deficits. Instead of saying, I have a low group, a middle group, and a high group, it needs to be, I have a group that needs extra help on fluency. I have a group that needs extra help with comprehension. I have a group that needs extra help with phonics. We need to be hitting each specific area and not grouping in the students as a whole based on a general idea. And finally, collaboration around data helps to ensure consistency and improve student outcome. Make sure that you are working with me, that you are working with your grade level peers, and that all of our data and our instruction is continuous across the grade level and throughout the school. Excuse me. In closing, the purpose of using assessment data is not simply to collect information, but it's to improve our students' literacy outcomes in meaningful and actionable ways. When data is used effectively, it becomes a tool that will help our teachers to make more informed instructional decisions and better support every learner. Thank you so much for your time and for your commitment to improving reading instruction at Comanche Elementary School. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. I will leave you with my email, and I would be glad to discuss any questions or concerns that you have with interpreting your instructional data. Thank you.